So welcome back, healthy people, to On Call with Dr. Randy. We have a bonus episode. Yay! Everybody get excited. All right. So a couple of weeks ago, we had on Lauren talking about her condition, hydrocephalus and ulcerative colitis. She was part of the series, I'm Too Young for This Ish. We were going to wrap up the series, but we want to have a bonus episode to have Lauren's mom on to talk about what happened during the whole process from her mother's perspective. So thank you, Ms. Taylor, for being on.
You are so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thanks for being on too, Lauren. Welcome back.
Thanks.
All right, so we'll just kind of get it started from the beginning. So I think last time me and Lauren talked, we kind of talked like a Marvel movie, kind of like an origin type story. And so we'll go through the same process as far as what happened during her initial hospitalization when she was born.
Well, Lauren was born on February 24th, cold winter's day. And I didn't have any indication that anything was wrong with her. I actually had told all my friends she has 5 fingers, 5 toes. We were ready to go home. We actually, like she told you in the last story, had her dressed in her pink snowsuit in the car seat and ready to go. And the team of doctors came in and said, we want one more doctor to check her out before she leaves. And I was just thinking, oh, this must be standard procedure. I was only 21. So I was thinking, I just want to look at her. I didn't know anything at all would come back with with them saying anything was wrong. So they had an eye doctor come in because she had sunset eyes. And he looked at her eyes and he didn't say much. He left, and I think maybe a half an hour later, a team of doctors came in, 3 doctors, and they basically said, Miss Brown, we need to talk to you. Your daughter has a bleed in her brain. They didn't say hydrocephalus. They used layman's terms. So, of course, I'm just hearing a bleed in the brain, and the first thing I said just out of my mouth was, is she going to die? Because I'm thinking her brain is bleeding. I didn't know what to expect. So they were like, no, the specialist is going to come in and talk to you about it. And that's when they told me it was called hydrocephalus. And of course, I'm still kind of like, I don't know what that is. But they did a really good job of walking me through the next steps. They decided to keep her in the NICU for a week. They sent me home. They kept her for a week. And they did tell me before I left that they were going to put a shunt in, that was standard procedure for hydrocephalus. And they kind of walked me through what a shunt did. But like I said, at 21, I was kind of like, I trust the doctors. So I went home and I came back to visit her each evening in the NICU, well, during the day and in the evening in the NICU. And then after a week, they sent her home with me. And as she told you, I was nervous because I didn't know what to expect once she got home. Her head was hurting, obviously, because she cried pretty much from the time she woke up to the time she went to bed. And they explained that she would probably have a headache and be irritable. But I was just thinking, well, I don't really know what to do. They're saying she has a bleed in her brain. What if something happens? And so thankfully my brother, he works over at Riley. He worked at Riley Hospital at the time, and he had a friend who was a nurse, and she called me and she talked to me about the kids in her NICU who dealt with hydrocephalus. And after hearing all the testimonies and how she made it sound like the surgery was just, they do it day in and day out. And after hearing that, I had more hope and I wasn't as scared. So 3 weeks old, they put the shunt in and the rest is history.
So how was that for you as a first, I think this was your first pregnancy, first child, and going home and having to leave Lauren at the hospital?
Well, when I went in, of course, I expected to come home with the baby. So when I had to leave her, it was it was shattering. My heart hurt, and I didn't want to leave her. But like I said, I was 21, and I lived under my parents' roof, and they wanted me to come home and get some rest. So the funny story, my cousin Kim, she would come during the day and pick me up and take me back to the hospital because my parents were pretty much like, Angie, we want you to rest. You need to be able to take care of Lauren when she comes home, so you don't need to spend 24 hours at the hospital. So as soon as my parents would leave the house, I'd go back to the hospital because I just could not fathom being without her. And she was only 5 pounds and a few ounces. So I'm looking at this tiny baby staying at the hospital. And I didn't know those doctors. I wanted to be with her. So, yeah, I would sneak off and go back to the hospital during the day and come home at night just to be with her. And, of course, back then, they'd have you mask up with your gown. You could go in and hold her a little while. But she was just so tiny and fragile. Like I said, I just didn't want to be apart from her. I wanted to stay at the hospital. And at Methodist Hospital, it was a little different than, like, say, your Riley Hospital, where the parents can go and stay in the Ronald McDonald room. No, they were like, she can stay and you can go home. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. Definitely got to be tough. Yeah. And so then you went to go get her kind of after a week, like you said, and then bring her home. So how was that aspect? You said it was a surprise?
It was, because I actually thought they were going to keep her until they did the surgery. I was just thinking, well, if anything goes wrong, she's with the doctors. They will know what to do. So when they said after a week that she could come home, as much as I wanted to be with her 24 hours a day, it was still scary to bring her home and think that something could go wrong. Her crib was in my room, and I remember after bringing her home that I would just watch her during the day, and I barely slept at night because I was just watching her. Every time she would cry, I would jump up just thinking something was wrong. It was an experience to, for your first child, for my first child, I should say. I was like I said, I didn't know what to expect. Plenty of prayers were going up from every, person that we had as a support team. But I was still just like, this is all foreign to me.
So what was your support system like during that whole ordeal at the onset?
Thankfully, my parents were my biggest support. They were at that hospital as much as I was when we were able to visit after she had the surgery. Of course, they were there the day of surgery. My parents, they had every friend, I think, in every state, because my father's retired military, praying on the prayer line for Lauren. Anytime they'd hear me up, my father would peek in, Angela, are you okay? Or sometimes my mother would creep into my room, Angela, are you okay? And I was laughing. I said, are y'all checking on me? Are y'all really checking on Lauren too? You told me I needed sleep, but I don't think they slept either. And I had friends who were like, anything you need, we're there for you. Even the day she had surgery, like my cousin Kim, who I said stuck me to the hospital, she came. The waiting room was just full of support that day.
So let's kind of go back to that day of the first surgery. So I'm assuming they kind of prepared you and told you all what was going to be involved. You had got yourself kind of mentally ready for the surgery. How did it go?
Dr. Turner, who was before he retired, actually one of the best neurosurgeons in the state of Indiana. And I found that out from my brother working at Riley and just the connections that he had over there. And of course, we did the research. So I felt like she was in good hands, but he explained it, I don't want to say like a surgeon, but he was just kind of like, we're going to go in, we're going to do this, and she'll be fine. So I didn't really, he just said, we're going to drill a hole in her skull the size of a dime. It'll be about 30 minutes, send up some prayers, and we'll be out. So he didn't really take too much time with us to like hold my hand and comfort me. He was just like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm good at it. and I'll be out in a minute. And they really were out in like 30, 45 minutes. I don't even think we had time to go down to the cafeteria and they were out. So he was, I don't know, some of the doctors that I dealt with before I left the hospital seemed to, I don't want to say hold my hand, but they seemed more like, well, we understand you're a new mom. Let's walk you through. But Dr. Turner, he was just about that business. So it was kind of, I don't want to say intimidating, but intimidating at the same time. Like I wanted to ask him questions, but he moved so fast. I was just like, okay, I trust you.
Do you feel like he gave you enough compassion during that time period?
Dr. Turner was really nice, but like I said, he definitely was not his bedside manner was funny to me because he always spoke really fast. He moved really fast, and I often felt like there weren't really time for questions. Now, when we saw him in the office for office visits, he was a little more laid back, but every single surgery that Lauren ever had, he was in and out. Like, you know, the routine, I'm in, I'm out, go to wait, I'll talk to you when I'm finished. But he was nice. But as far as just very personable, I always kind of felt like maybe I had a question and down the hall.
He's like, we ain't got time for questions. I got to go knock this out.
And he moved. Are you too young to know the Benny Hill show?
Yes, I've heard of it. I don't know what it is, but I've heard of it.
But some of the people who are watching this will probably know the Benny Hill show. That's how he and his team moved. If you needed a question, you better ask why he's walking.
So we know when Lauren becomes a surgeon that she won't be in and out like that. Won't you, Lauren?
I'll take my time. I would say that though, like that's something I can work with my experience to be like, what do I want to do as a surgeon?
Mm-hmm. So Lauren had her first surgery. Then you got to go and take her home. What was it like kind of after she had her first surgery and expectation wise, knowing that she'll need another one in the future?
I believe that I kind of felt like it was the calm after the storm once she had the shunt put in, because it was almost like they flipped a switch. When she came home, she was just so calm. You could tell she was no longer in pain. She was just, and I'm not biased because she's my first baby, but she was just the sweetest little baby. You could just tell that she had been in pain. And when I talked to Dr. Turner, he did tell me that she'd need a shunt revision, probably in grade school. He explained that, of course, because shunts are man-made, that they could malfunction. But we never really focused on it malfunctioning. The years went by, and fifth or sixth grade, I believe it was sixth grade, because she was going to go to sixth grade camp. The revision, it came time for the revision, and things went smoothly. And we were so used to not having any problems that when she had that first revision and future surgeries came, that's when I was surprised. It was normal to go years without anything other than a yearly visit. I'll backtrack. When Lauren had the surgery, the first surgery, she did have several specialists. She had to see an eye doctor because they were a little concerned about her vision. So there were quite a few follow-up visits that were with the eye doctor, occupational therapy, because they were afraid that she wouldn't walk before 1 year, before she turned one. So those were normal. And then, like I said, the yearly visit with Dr. Turner was normal. And I believe she was probably 18 months when she was able to stop seeing both the eye specialist and the occupational therapist. So moving forward, all the way to sixth grade, the only doctor she saw was her pediatrician and her neurosurgeon. So it was, it's weird to say it was life as normal. It was normal for us, but there wasn't much going on that had us so concerned where we felt like Dr. Turner wasn't going to be able to handle it. And I think I just always focused on the fact that, well, had she had hydrocephalus years ago, there wouldn't be anything that they could have done about it. So I think we just went forward focusing on the blessing that they were able to put a shunt in.
Mm-hmm. So as you kind of mentioned the word normal, me and Lauren talked about this on the previous episode, that this has always kind of been the normal for her. The office visits that she's had to go through, the surgeries that she's had to go through. So I don't know if you remember offhand, what was the initial conversation with when Lauren became of age where she can kind of understand everything as far as hydrocephalus, her condition, the things that she may have to go through in the future? Do you remember kind of that initial talk?
I remember at the very first surgery, they gave us a coloring book for kids. And of course, 3 weeks old, there was nothing we could really do with the coloring book for her. So we just held on to it. And as she got older, well, when she was probably, Lauren, probably around 3, I want to say, we started showing her the coloring book and just explaining to her about her shunt. She didn't really understand it at 3 years old, but we just made sure each time she went back to the doctor that we would tell her that she has a shunt and it was helping her because she was sick as a baby. And I want to say Lauren was probably in maybe third grade before she really figured out what was going on. I don't want to say figured out, but was just kind of like, oh. So not everybody has a shunt. Was it third grade, Lauren? Maybe around that time, second, third grade?
Yeah, it might have been around that time. But yeah, like I actually understood, like could get, I don't remember the age exactly, but I remember talking to Mom one day, and at one point I thought, like, I don't know, if you're like only born with one kidney. So like, I didn't realize that I had a shunt because I needed one, and it was like a piece of plastic that they gave me. I literally thought I was missing something. And I was like talking to her about it, and I was going, "You mean I was born without this shunt that I was supposed to have?" And she was like, "No, ma'am." So she did have to, like obviously I had to like grow into actually, understanding the disorder. But yeah, at one point she had to backtrack and explain it again. It was like, no, like you weren't born without something. You have like an extra piece that you needed because you were sick.
And we never really told her, like, we never used the word, like, you're different, or, and I don't even think we used the word ill very much, did we, Lauren, or sick? We just told her that she had a shunt and that it helped her because we may have said sick. But it was probably fourth or fifth grade before she maybe wrapped her head around the fact that she'd have to have another surgery. And by that time, then it was almost surgery time in sixth grade.
And I don't remember, I think they gave you like a list of symptoms as well, because I feel like at a certain point, like I had to know to tell you, like, no, I need, something's wrong and we need to go, like see Dr. Turner, or like go to the hospital, like not just like, oh, I'm, like you're saying, like I'm sick, or like, I don't feel well, Mom. But like there's a point, where it's like I knew to come to them and be like, nah, something's not right.
We always kept a list of symptoms on the refrigerator, but the main things I would always tell her, let us know if she had a headache. And of course, we'd know, unless she wasn't with us, if she was sick to her stomach or vomiting, or if she felt dizzy or blurry vision was the main thing. But it was her big thing was always a headache. So we would always tell her, now let us know if you had a headache. But it's, headache, nauseous, those things could be, do you have the flu? So it was just always precautions.
So as Lauren kind of got older, we know she had to eventually have more surgeries and revisions of the shunt. Do y'all recall the first surgery that she had that you actually remember? And how was that conversation as a parent talking about that surgery?
The first surgery that we talked about was the revision because it was scheduled. So we were able to let her know exactly what was going to happen. They even walked her through the operating room procedures and what would happen and everything. And Lauren always went in like a champ, almost like it was, like I said, just second nature. Like, this is what mom says is going to happen, so I'm just going with the flow of things. So the very first surgery, she may not have 100% understood what the doctor was going to do, but she went in. I think her father and I were more scared than she was. At least she didn't seem nervous. She went to the OR. They let us stay with her until they took her back, and the only thing she was concerned about was her homework. Mom, make sure somebody brings my homework up here. Okay. She never wanted to miss any school at all.
So do you remember that, Lauren? Do you remember going to take a tour of the the operating room and them kind of explaining things?
I actually don't remember that at all. Like, I do remember the whole homework thing because I think that happened every time. So like the homework thing, right, what happened also when I was older. But yeah, that first like revision surgery, like we said, I might have been in sixth grade or something. I don't remember them. Like that makes sense though, especially as a kid to be like, let's at least help this process as much as we can. But I don't remember that at all.
Because I want to say they had a little book for that too. They did a really great job as far as having books and coloring books and things to help kids feel comfortable about what was going to happen. I do remember one thing. It was the only reason I remember it was sixth grade is because Lauren had a sixth grade camp that she did not want to miss. And I want to say she was 4 or 5 days out of surgery and was pretty much demanding that she attend this sixth grade camp outing. And Dr. Turner was pretty much like, she can go. There's nothing holding her back. She's been released and she can go. So she went. It's almost like she never missed a beat. Once she was released from the hospital and had the all clear, as long as she wasn't playing contact sports, Dr. Turner was like, let her be.
Shout out to Dr. Turner out here saving lives and putting in shunts. So while we're kind of on the subject about Lauren going to camp and leaving home and being away from you, how did you deal with that as a parent when she would have to go other places like camp, go and stay with friends overnight, or even as a baby, if you had someone watching her like babysitting? How did you kind of watch from a distance or educate people on her condition?
Well, I was blessed to have my mother watch Lauren until she was 2. So I knew she was in good hands when I had to work. But anytime, as she got older, anytime she went anywhere, I had to make sure people knew we would actually send her symptom list with her if she spent the night someplace. And of course, would only let her go with someone who we really trusted and knew would care for her the same way we did. But it was pretty nerve-wracking because I know that Dr. Turner would always say no dodgeball, no contact sports, like, Lord forbid the child get hit in the head. So when she's not in your hands, you're kind of worried, like, well, what is she going to do? Is she going to sneak and play dodgeball? Or, are they going to wrestle? What might happen? So as a parent with a child that has a shunt, I will say when she was not in my hand, not in my sight, I'd worry. Lord, how are you, 30, 31?
Right. Hold on now.
I'm sorry. And I still worry about her when she's not with me. And I will say one thing that Dr. Turner told me, because they have to give you the best and worst case scenarios. So they give you the best case scenario, but then sometimes your brain holds on to the one thing they tell you might happen. And they did say when she was little that if her shunt malfunctioned and we didn't get her in time, that depending on how long we went, it could cause her brain to collapse. Well, of course, at 21 years old, that's the only thing I heard. So even to this day, when she's out of my sight, I occasionally ask her, do you have a headache? Have you been sick? Do you have any symptoms? How's your shunt? You should know. So yeah, it's almost like out of everything Dr. Turner told me, even with the statistics of how well a shunt works, for some reason, I held on to that little bit of information.
And I don't remember, I don't know why, but I feel like we talked about getting a medical bracelet for me. And I don't know why we never did. Because I think we had that conversation like, yo, do you need one that like says, hydrocephalus or something? Because people usually have like diabetes, you can get anything so people will know, if she does fall out in the middle of the street, nobody knows her. But like, I never got one.
Yeah. No. Because I wasn't letting you out of my sight. To at school, like we always send her records. I personally talk to every single nurse about if she has a headache, she's not just coming down to get out of a test. If she has a headache, you all really need to call us, because we had an incident after her first revision. And it's so funny how the school system, I won't say the school system works, but it was actually in her medical records that if she has a headache, you need to call because it could be her hydrocephalus. She actually went down to the nurse complaining of a headache and being sick to her stomach, and they were kind of like, just deal with it. And of course, she called me, and I had to go up to the school and talk to them and reiterate again, like, no, we really need you to call us if she has something as simple as a headache. So even with it being in the charts, there were times when we dealt with people just saying, hey, it's a headache, sleep it off or put your head down, stay at school and see if it goes away. And so we had to be very adamant, and I had to be very upfront and personal with her, with the nurses, to make sure they would call mom.
Lauren, did you ever feel like your mom was overprotective sometimes, or you can kind of, as an adult now, realize she was just trying to protect her baby?
Both. I know she was trying to protect me, and I feel like I always do this on the episodes where I just blur all the disorders together, but that's how it seems to me, because this happened with the ulcerative colitis, because she will kidnap me and take me to the hospital. So the first appointments that we had for the ulcerative colitis, the first line treatment, like the doctor is like, let's try this, that, whatever, take some steroids and we're gonna see. And mom was kind of like, okay, I done seen, and this ain't what. So I went to school one day and I came home and I got off the bus and everybody's in the driveway getting in the car with a backpack for me, and mom was like, all right, come on, we're going to the hospital. I was like, dang, no, you asked me. It was so funny, but I don't know, because it's when people are like, oh, I have a helicopter mom, or my parents are very, but it's one thing to be strict or a helicopter mom, but if you're sick, you know what I mean? So you need somebody to take care of you and make sure you get better. So even if I didn't want to go to the hospital, because I try to negotiate that all the time. Can I just not go to the hospital? And she's like, no, not really.
That 2 years ago, a year ago.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, because I know, and I don't know what it is. Like they say, moms have that gut instinct. Every single time, Lauren has to admit, every single time I made her go to the ER, it was really her shunt that had malfunctioned. We never went to the ER, and they said, oh, Miss Brown, Mrs. Taylor, you're wrong. We're just going to send her home. Every single time the shunt had malfunctioned, even during the pandemic when I kept saying, Lauren, something's not quite right. I want you to go to the ER. And she was like, I think I'm just tired. I was like, we're going to the ER, and her shunt had really malfunctioned.
And then, she was just it was 2 years ago. And she was like, no, you can't stay home. You get in the car. She was like, But like you're saying, I had to be grateful because I honestly would be dead. We know the drill. So if I didn't go.
So this is what I'll say about that. Once she has symptoms and she takes herself to the ER, mom will be able to rest a little bit. But seeing that she still is, like I said, a little older and does not want to go to the ER, I still have to persuade her sometimes. But once she starts taking herself, I'll rest a little.
You're not going to rest. You're not going to rest at all. No, she's just straight lying on the podcast.
Where's the last? But being a doctor, I'll already be in the hospital. You see how I did that? That was a thought process. I was like, I don't even have to take myself because I'll be there anyway.
So y'all both kind of mentioned the episode of you like needing to have your shunt redone during the pandemic. What was that like when you told her to go in the midst of all that was going on with COVID?
That was actually the first surgery ever that I was not able to be with her. So that was nerve-wracking. They did tell me ahead of time that I could drop her off at the ER and leave her there. So when I had to leave her at the ER, kind of knowing in my gut that it was her shunt, the prayer line, like I said, it's the saving grace for our family. So I had to come home and just send up some major prayers that night. And when she called and said, Mom, it is my shunt, they're going to do surgery. At this point, I was just kind of like, what else? What could I do? I just trust that she's in good hands. And the doctor and Lauren knows that I get a little anxious when it comes to her. So she always tells the nurses, like the recovery nurses, like, please tell my mom that I'm okay. So this time with me not being there, I guess she woke up begging them, like, can you call her now? Did you ask the doctor? I think she even asked the doctor, like, before you even tell me anything, please just call my mom and tell her I'm okay, please.
It was the nurse because I woke up in recovery. I don't know. Not like I don't know where the doctor was, but I'm sure he was probably doing some other surgery. But yeah, I opened my eyes in recovery and, they're there to make sure you're good to go. And she's like, just looking at me. And I'm like you said, please just call my mom. Like, I'm fine. Don't even worry about me.
Yeah, I know that had to be like a crazy time. Anytime that Lauren has surgery, there's always a heightened sense of something wrong may happen. But then on top of that, COVID and her being in a hospital in a setting where a lot of people are concerned about her potentially getting sick from something that's just around and possibly may make her even worse than what she was going through then. But did that add a level of anxiety to the situation?
It really did, because it was during the height of COVID, because that's why they didn't have any visitors coming to the hospital. So that did add a whole nother level of anxiety to the pot, I will say. So, and they got her in and out really fast because of that. So as soon as they said, you can come get her, I was just like, thank you, Jesus, because I'm on my way.
Yeah, like Mom said, I don't usually skip a beat. Like, they'll fix me and I'm good to go. And that was one of the things. They're like, man, we fixed you. We took your scan of your head and everything looks great. And if you stay here, you're going to get COVID, so go home. So yeah, I think I was out in like 24 hours, 48 hours.
Like that. It's almost like it seems like they almost, it was a little under 48 hours.
Didn't you sneak into the hospital?
Technically, I didn't sneak. They gave me some wrong information. The changing of the guards didn't have the right information, so Mama got up in there. I think they had just changed their protocol when I went, and a couple of the people at the desk thought they were still allowing visitors during certain times. So once they checked and found out, no, they really weren't, I was pleading with them, like, please, can I just look at her? And I guess they saw my mom's face and they let me through, and I was able to just look at her and leave, but it was enough to calm my nerves. But they were really sweet about it because I think they could tell I was getting ready to cry. I was.
Yeah, I can imagine. So the moms will find a way to sneak in there, get in there, and do what they need to do just to lay eyes on their baby. So we kind of talked about it and touched on it earlier about ulcerative colitis and Lauren being diagnosed when she was a teenager. And so she mentioned last time that we talked that you were the one who first kind of pointed out to her that it seemed like something was going on with her. She was going to the bathroom a lot. Can you tell me a little bit about that story?
I guess sometimes we take for granted when the doctors say, when you check in for a doctor's appointment and they ask, are you using the bathroom a little more or a little less? And you just don't really think about that question. But I heard Lauren up each evening for probably 2 weeks during the middle of the night, just going to the restroom. And I thought that was odd because Lauren would always sleep straight through the night. And I asked her about it. I said, Lauren, is your stomach just upset? Is something going on? And she was pretty much just like, I just keep having to go to the bathroom. And like I always say, mom instinct, I said, well, doesn't sound like you should be going to the bathroom every night in the middle of the night. So let's go to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
like, I've heard of people having the bubble guts, but not like this. That was a little extreme on that.
Yeah, and it was almost every night for 2 weeks, and it was just not her routine. And so, like I said, I'm always better safe than sorry. Maybe she could have just been sneaking and eating too much candy, but I didn't feel like it. And I was just like, well, let's just go to your primary care doctor. And we told him, and he did send her to a specialist.
Mm-hmm. So what happened after she went to see the specialist? She went to see the GI doctor. I'm assuming they had a discussion about her having blood in her stool.
Mm-hmm. They did. They did a physical exam, I believe, at the doctor's office with the specialist. Didn't they do a physical exam before they ever did the colonoscopy?
Yeah, and they probably did to do the like your doctor. They probably did a FOBT and it was positive. But yeah, you're right. They probably started with
It started with a sample, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Like a regular.
Yes, and then when she went to the special, and so the sample came back showing blood in the stool, and then that's when she was referred to the specialist. And when he did a physical exam, it was very clear that she had blood in her stool, and so he immediately ordered a colonoscopy. And of course, the whole team of prayer warriors went up to the hospital that day for the testing. And when the doctor came out, and I cannot even think of his name, I'm sorry, I guess Dr. Turner's the only doctor I ever remember. He came out and he was holding her films, and he said, she has a disease. And we were thinking, we know she has hydrocephalus. He said, no, she has ulcers on her colon, and he explained to us what that was and said they were going to keep her and try to treat her with steroids and see if that would help. No, and actually, did they keep you after the colonoscopy, Lauren, or is that when they sent you home for the 2 weeks?
I think with the steroids, they sent me home because all I had to do was take them, and they were just kind of like, we'll see if they work or not. Do you remember, they ran so many tests, and I know I had the colonoscopy, but I think I got the films the one day because were you with me? Because I had to drink all the, it was like a gallon of whatever I had to drink.
Was the colonoscopy, I believe.
Because I think I stayed at the hospital all day. It was just kind of we're gonna let it move through your system. We were up there all day.
Yeah, so then they did. She's right. They did send her home to see if the medicine would work, and
was like, it ain't working.
I think they said give it 4 or 5 days, and I think in 4.3 minutes, I was like, I don't know what's happening. So they did keep her, and the doctors did agree that it was pretty aggressive. And she ended up being in the hospital, Lauren, was 30 days with that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. They tried some heavy hitting medicines before they did the surgery, but none of the steroids were working. They would come in like again with a team of doctors each day, and they were kind of like, these steroids aren't making a dent at all. So they recommended a medicine that she could.
This is Remicade?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was, now that you say that. And once we did the research on that, she was 18 at the time, or getting ready to turn 18 and getting ready to leave for college. So they gave her two options. They said she could try this Remicade and come back every so often, and what they would administer it intravenously.
I think so. Mm-hmm.
Or she could have her colon removed. And at 18 years old, I looked at her and I said, Lauren, you're almost 18. I think you were turning 18, in 2 weeks or something like that. I said,
last colon surgery was like the day before my 18th birthday.
I said, you're getting ready to go to IU. I can't make that decision for you. You know whether or not you want to come home every, 6 weeks, Lauren, or something like that? You were going to have to come home?
Like that. Mm-hmm.
I said, and deal with being poked and prodded. And I don't know if Lauren told you that normally when they put an IV in, they end up having to get the heart surgeon. What are the heart unit for her, because she's a hard stick. Usually, the what is it?
The vascular specialist.
I'm talking about. Yeah, that's usually harder than the surgery on her. And so I knew that Lauren was not going to want to have to come back and do that every 6 weeks, because she doesn't like needles to this day because of that. So I told her to think about it. And they explained, what it would be like to have her colon removed. They talked to her about the procedure and how many surgeries she would have after that, how her life would be if she didn't have a colon. And she quickly made that decision to go ahead and have that surgery.
Mm-hmm. So how was that kind of for you as a parent at that time period? I don't know if Lauren at that time was kind of stable from the hydrocephalus standpoint, and is it now kind of like, what now? Something else has popped up.
I would just have to say, I could not believe it. I really couldn't. I thought, she has hydrocephalus. This is it. Surely there will be nothing else. So when he came with this whole diagnosis of ulcerative colitis, I'm sorry, my nerves are getting to me now. I was like, are you serious? And I just felt like, I don't want to say why her, but I just felt sad for her. As a mom, I was just like, the child has been through so much, all of these brain surgeries, and now to have her colon removed. More so not really worried about what we would have to go through, with her. I was worried about her and her spirits and how it would feel, at such a young age to have to deal with all of this. I always thought colostomy bag was for older people. Like, everybody that I knew was older that had one. So I was concerned about how she would handle college, and the last part of her senior year with this bag on. And I was really worried what it would do to her mental state. I'm not going to lie about that. I was just thinking, wow, how much more can the child have to go through? And it was getting to the point where, like you said, the first surgery, she was in and out. She was a champ. As she went on and had to get each revision of the shunt, you could tell it was starting to wear on her. It was kind of like, are you serious? Another surgery. Then when she had this diagnosis and had to stay in the hospital and watch her for 30 days, never had Lauren said, I don't want a visitor. Because she was just used to everybody, all of mom's friends, all of grand's friends, anybody that wanted to come and pray for her. She was fine. Let them come. Let them see me. Have dinner at the hospital. Let them stay in the waiting room. When they told her about this ulcerative colitis, I think 2 weeks into that hospital stay, Lauren was like, Mom, I do not want another visitor, and I mean it. And so we had to respect that. She was tired. So at that point, the only people that came were me, my husband, Her little brother, of course, was always welcome. My mom and my dad. And it felt weird to tell people who were just wanting to show her love that, we got to respect her. She, she's old enough to say she doesn't want company. So we're not having company. So that was a little hard to have to tell people that they couldn't lay eyes on her. But that, I want to say, the ulcerative colitis battle was harder than any of the shunt revisions, harder than all of them put together. That was the one time where I saw Lauren cry the most. That ileostomy bag, and I called it a colostomy bag, but it was an ileostomy bag. It wore her out. Changing it, it was not a good time.
It wore me out a little bit, but also you and Dad, because there was a time where like they were helping me. That's what it reminded me of. I was like, dang, like you said, I'm like 18 at this point. Like it's almost like I'm back to being a baby and they're changing diapers, because there was one time where like they had to switch the bag that I had. It's like you can have different brands or different, So the first one I started with, it was good, and they taught me how to use it, and it was like easier to use. And then I think I switched bags, and I just couldn't. I was like, this ain't working. I don't know what I'm doing. And then like Mom tried to help me, and then Dad tried to help me, and we were just like, wow. we actually had to end up going. I think we got they either got me a different brand, but we went back to the doctor, and they're like, all right, let's give you this bag so it can actually, you can put it on and it'll actually stay there.
I believe because Lauren had already had previous stomach surgeries, that the way they put her ileostomy bag on, it wouldn't lie flat, if that makes sense. So it made it harder for her to change it herself, where they thought she would just be able to take it off and put it on because it didn't lay like it was supposed to. She had trouble, and then her skin is sensitive. So not only could she not change the bag, then she had to deal with the rawness of her skin. So imagine taking a Band-Aid off of raw skin every single day is almost what we were doing, because it just kept leaking. And so when I tell you, that was one time where we really had to pull together as a family to help her, because like I said, we were just so used to, after the shunt surgery, she just comes home and she's like, hey, not back to normal, but I'm just living my best life. This one, we really had to be hands-on with the ileostomy bag. It was hard. It was very hard. It was hard to watch too.
Yeah. So one thing that I've been doing personally the last few years is finding ways to protect my peace. And I feel like the situation that you talked about not letting people in to see you after you had your surgery was a way for you to protect your peace. Do you know what went into that thought process for you of not wanting people to come see you?
I think like Mom was saying, I was kind of just tired. Yeah, I think at that point, like she was saying, I in total, that hospital stay was 30 days. And I remember that because when I went back to like school for the first time, and like a teacher actually mentioned that, he was like, wow, we have perfect attendance in like in the last 30 days we haven't. But I feel like being like 2 weeks in and I don't know if by then we even knew what we were going to do or if they had a plan or anything like that. And I think I was just so tired that I was just like, if it's not something that's going to help, I just think I was exhausted. I was just like, I've been in here how long? I don't know when I'm going to leave. I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, what is happening right now? Yeah, I think I was just exhausted.
Because she hadn't had the colon surgery yet. She hadn't had it removed at 2 weeks. They were still trying steroids. So she didn't know what one day would look like to the next.
Mm-hmm. And so kind of during that time period, you're a teenager, you're coming into yourself as a woman, as an individual. So Miss Taylor, what was it kind of like watching her go through this, especially during that time in her life period?
I remember when she went to senior prom, she had on a little silky light blue dress, and you could see the ileostomy bag, you could see the outline of it. And when she went to the prom, one of the teachers asked her, was she trying to sneak alcohol in?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just kind of one of those things where you felt like, on top of having the health issues, now you have school issues that you have to deal with and stop and explain what's going on. Like, and I was like, how embarrassing must that have been for her to have to tell them, no, it's a poop bag. It's not alcohol, because that's what Lauren would always call it, my poop bag. And I just kind of felt, felt bad for her, because I remember my senior year, you look forward to going to the prom and whatever senior trip they're having and just having fun and touring colleges. And I was just thinking, wow, to have another layer of just health issues in the midst of what should be probably the funnest year of high school. Once again, like I said, I was just worried about her emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my frame of mind was, as long as it's curable or they can fix it or they can manage it, I never really felt crushed about the diagnosis. I was just always thankful that it was manageable, because when we were at the hospital for 30 days, then we'd see parents who were there for 6 months. So then you put things in perspective and you're like, oh, it could be a lot worse. So when Lauren, were you a senior when you were the Kiwanis Award?
Was I a senior? I might have been younger. That might have been a different year.
Okay, and I don't know. And I think one of the things that we just always said as a family, and Lauren said this at her award, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. And that's just kind of how we looked at it. And we didn't tell her not to have, her bad days. Like, we definitely feel your emotions. If you're sad about it, cry, we're here. But I think as a family, we just always really tried to focus on it could be worse.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
and she's made it through all of
this. Mm-hmm. She really has. She's our determined little young lady.
Mm-hmm. So as we kind of wrap up, if there's a parent listening out there or someone who has a chronic condition, what kind of lasting words of wisdom, Ms. Taylor, would you leave for that parent who may have a child going through some kind of similar situation? What kind of words of hope would you want to provide them?
I would say, first of all, always trust your gut instinct, because there were a couple of times when we called and they said, no, that doesn't fit the symptoms. And I was like, it might not fit your symptoms, but something's wrong with my child. So you have to fight for your child, even if you feel like the doctor knows more. I just feel like as parents, we have that gut instinct that tells us when something's wrong. My big thing is prayer. We just stayed on the prayer line. We didn't give up hope, and we just tried to stay positive with the situation. But I would definitely encourage being an advocate and doing your research when it comes to any type of health condition.
Yes. Be an advocate. Don't start knocking down stuff off the table, though. Don't get too wild. Just be an advocate.
No, definitely not that. Definitely not that. But always, if you have questions or you don't, you're not comfortable with the answer that you get, it's always ask more questions or get a second opinion is what I would definitely say, second or third opinion, because luckily, like I said, we were blessed with a really good team. But there were times when even I had to say, well, I'm not liking the answer that we got, so let's go to the ER. And that's how they found one of her malfunctions. We didn't catch it with the primary care doctor, but we went to the ER and they did some more tests and they found it. So I would just say, if you're feeling uncomfortable, get a second opinion.
Mm-hmm. Any words you want to leave, Lauren?
I don't think so. I think she got it all. Does she get like what did we do last time? Randy round of questions.
Oh, they are coming. They are coming. See, you already spoiling it for me, but we're going to get into it. So we always end with Randy's random questions. Lauren is so ready for it. She just jumped straight into it. So I'm going to ask y'all both the same question. So I'm going to start off with you, Lauren. If you had to use one word to describe your mom, what word would that word be?
I only get one?
Yes.
I was going to say, okay, can I do like what the number one word was and then the number two word? Because they both came into my mind at the same time.
Okay.
So I was going to say amazing. And that was really a culmination of just listening to you for the past, for this episode. But strong. And I feel like no, but you have the disorders, Lauren, so you're strong. But I feel like also as the parent, she had to go through a lot. And I'm sure it was, I feel like, these kids are already a lot anyway. And so like on top of that, it's like when you have a sick child and you have to go through all of that. So yes.
All right. So same question for you, Miss Taylor. If you had to use, I said one, but Lauren, she's going to do what she wants to do and do one plus a bonus word. So we'll give you one and a bonus word to describe Lauren.
The first thing that came to mind was resilient. And she's definitely a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
She is.
Why do you use the word resilient for her?
That child just bounces back. Like I said, she's had so many things, not even just health issues, but just things go on in life, and she just has that bounce back mentality. She just I'm determined to keep going and make the best of all the situations.
Okay. And the last question. So if y'all had to go on a girls' trip together, just y'all two, where would y'all go and what would y'all do? So I'll let Lauren go first. Well, no, I'll let Miss Taylor go first. I'll let you go first this time. If y'all had to go on a girls' trip together, where would y'all go?
I've always wanted to go, and I'll put this out there since she's going to be a doctor, right? I'm going to go to Greece. And I would love to see Greece with Lauren and just spend time at the beach, do some food tours, do some shopping, go to the spa.
All on her dime.
All on her dime. You heard me say she's going to be a doctor, so she's going to take me right.
All right, Lauren, same question for you. Where would you want to go with your mom?
I think I want to go, maybe we can go to Aruba. I feel like I want to be on the beach. But now that we've said that, we are, Dr. Randy, we're going to contact you and let you know when we get to those places. I'll take you to Greece, Mom.
All right, so this is documented in time. She has committed to taking you to Greece. So anytime she forgets about that, you can just pull this episode up and go to this section of the podcast and play it back for her. All right. So I appreciate y'all two both being on and sharing your stories individually and as a family. Y'all gone through a lot, but made it through together. And I know y'all serve as an inspiration to others who may be going through something similar as a family or as an individual. So thank you all for sharing your stories.
You are so welcome. Thanks for having us.
All right.
Thank you.